Yeah, I was already introduced. My name is Mateusz Trawiński. I'm a Scrum Master at Curate Retail Group, which is a big e-commerce company operating in US, UK, DE, Italy, and Japan. But today I won't talk about strictly work, but about acting against the brain and how agile frameworks build on knowledge about organizational structures, neuroscience, and ourselves. And this would be the introductory slide if it would be an ordinary presentation, but it actually won't be, and I didn't plan it to be so. We'll talk a lot about metaphors today, so I would like to start with a metaphor of a journey. If you go to a journey, you can go to a travel agency and pick something from a catalog, which will mostly determine your experiences and how the travel will go. It's more like a waterfall process, so it's optimized for delivery of experiences. But there is another type of journey, which is an adventure. Adventure is like agile, so it's optimized for learning, and there is a very important thing about adventure is that the experiences during an adventure are not fully determined. So there are things which can happen during an adventure which will make it more fun, and I would love this presentation to be an adventure of all of us all together. So, okay, let's start with the actual presentation with maybe a storytelling or just a thing from me personally. When I was a little boy, around 13 or 14 years old, I always asked myself various questions, like why my parents don't understand me, who am I, what the future will bring for me and for the whole world, how do complex organizations work, what should I do to be successful, and last but not least, how to make this beautiful blonde girl from the higher grade notice me. And today we will focus on answering 3 of these questions. Who am I? How do complex organizations work? And what I should do and what we should do to be successful in our everyday work. And these 3 topics will become the agenda of this presentation. As I already spoke about Agile, a quick thing about what the Agile is for me, and when every time I will say about Agile, I will mention, I will think about 4 things. Agile generally puts into practice a quote by ancient philosopher Qui-Gon Jinn, that your focus determines your reality. And what's the focus of Agile? It's encoded in 4 values. First one, we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Second one, we value more working software and generally the outcomes of our work and comprehensive documentation. Third thing, we value more customer collaboration than contract negotiation. And fourth thing, we value more responding to change and being responsive, adaptive, than following plan A, plan B, or any other plan created before we started our work. Okay, so let's start from the first thing mentioned in the title of the presentation, acting against the brain. Brain is a great and fascinating thing, which is investigated by mostly people from the neuroscience field. And what is most fascinating about it is that our brain works totally different than we actually think about how it works. So the scientific knowledge about our brain provided to us by neuroscientists actually destroy the assumptions of how we think about our thinking, because the processes are most commonly totally different than we assume them. So what does our culture tells us to behave and how we want our brain or would like our brain to behave? So first thing, we would like our brain and ourselves to work efficiently in diverse working environments. We are told to quit our comfort zone, go to the growth zone, leave what is known to us, and go for the unknown, for the better outcome. We are also told that change is good, but still hard. How our brain reacts to all these quotes, all these good words, it throws us errors all the time. Why is that? Mainly because of the fact that our conscious needs and wants are very complex, but are just above things which are in the core of our human minds, which are determined by genetics, by our biases, by our personal experience or self-image and self-esteem. And those mechanisms mentioned here are far more stronger than how we consciously think about ourselves. Why is that? This is because our brain, as it evolved until now, was evolved a million years ago, and this process continues until today. But let's quickly focus on our species, so Homo sapiens. It is said that our species is around 200,000 years old. Some estimates tell us that it's around 300,000 years, but let's assume that it's 200. Each of these boxes represent 1,000 years. So as a species, we started somewhere here. Now we're here, 200 boxes, 200,000 years of our evolution. Around 70,000 years ago, very interesting thing happened. And it happened here. Our ancestors started to draw pictures in the caves. The oldest cave drawings are estimated to be around 68,000 years ago. This is the reason why visuals work for us better than the plain text or anything we can write in our common languages. 12,000 years ago, another great thing happened. People learned to cut stone and build first monolithic structures in Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe in today's Turkey. 5,000 years ago, we invented writing. So we can compare all our evolution of how we are until now and how we evolved to be who we are today with the text, which was, and the language was written language, which is quite a new innovation to our species. Then, only 500 years ago, around 500 years ago, Middle Ages ended, and it provided new ways of doing things for the people. There is a very little stripe here, which go 100 years back when the electricity became popular, and around 50s and 60s, scientists and consultants focused on being effective and innovate. So when you compare our modern ways of working to how we evolved as people, you will see that what we're actually engaged with, working on complex projects, solving hard puzzles, either within IT or outside IT, is not what we evolved for. And today we think that our place where we live, our most widespread area of living, are those big cities with technology and all the things which are innovative and move us forward. But from the evolutionary perspective, this is actually our living environment. So we evolved to live in caves, in small groups, which trust each other. And this is the first, let's say, spoiler to how modern Agile frameworks work, which focus on small teams, which are far effective. And this also relates to who we are as people. Then let's move to another step of how our brain works. This is how people from the Enlightenment thought the brain works. What we now know today is that brain actually works like this. maybe. Now I will show you 5 chosen so-called cognitive biases of humans in general. But what if I told you that there are no cognitive biases? Because what we call cognitive biases are actually mental models that help us being effective. Because what made people successful in the evolutionary field is that we are energy efficient organisms. And these 5 things I will mention now may be perceived as biases, but actually make us really effective. And before I start, let's just have this quote by Karl Raimund Popper, famous philosopher of science. He said that there's actually no difference between amoeba and Einstein, because both amoeba and Einstein learn through method of trial and error. The only difference is that while amoeba dislikes the error it makes, the Einstein is intrigued by it. So the being intrigued by our biases and mental models we have can really move us forward if we're intrigued enough about them. Okay, so first things first. Very often we are told that there are many ways to improve on the work we're doing, and that we should develop multitasking. But from the evolutionary perspective, there is one problem. We evolved in very simple contexts with very simple things to do. So multitasking is actually a great problem and is not energy efficient for our brains. So the first problem we have as human beings in general is that we have low efficiency of multitasking. Second thing, let's imagine that your boss comes to you and gives you a task to be completed and sets the deadline in, let's say, 3 months. What will actually happen in this situation? We all know that we have 3 months until the deadline and everything is okay. We still have enough time to complete our task. 2 months until the deadline, we will still be quite comfortable with the time we have. 1.5 months until the deadline, it will still be okay because we can reach the goal that was set. What will happen 1 month to the deadline? We will see that the work we actually want to do is very complex, more complex than we actually assumed. And this example, this process is also a, let's say, cognitive bias we are all hit by, which is called the student syndrome. Student syndrome, whether you studied or not, is a process where you have a certain amount of work to be done, and for all those unpleasant things you're about to do, you push it forward to the deadline because it's very unpleasant to do it. You will feel you still have time until there's not enough time to complete the task. The problem behind it is that we have the tendency to take easier tasks first, because completing a task will give us a shot of dopamine, which will make us feel good about what we did and what we completed. Therefore, we will push away those tasks which are unpleasant and complex farther away from us. Third thing, let's imagine a situation that you have a project manager that comes into a room to a team of software developers asking, "Hi, how is your project? How your project is going?" What is the most common answer you will get in any possible team?
Very good.
Almost done.
Yeah, that's actually true. Most likely your team, any team, either a good team or a bad team or an average team, they will say something like, "We are almost done." What's the reason behind it? We are almost done. As human beings, we have tendency to overestimate the progress done, especially in complex tasks we're doing, because we want to feel good about ourselves. Therefore, we will think and we won't do it intentionally, just to trick somebody or mislead anyone. We will think that we did more progress than we actually did. Fourth thing, in the 70s, in Israeli Air Force, there was an experiment to check whether pilots are better when they're rewarded or better when they're punished. So they made test flights, and they were rated for each flight. If the flight was above average, was a very good flight, the pilots were rewarded. If they had a bad flight, they were punished. So what happened? During next flights, those pilots which were rewarded actually had a worse flight than before. And pilots who were punished, who had bad flights, in the next round, during the next flight, they were on average better than before. So what was the conclusion? First conclusion those researchers came up with. Is punishing more better strategy or rewarding? They thought initially that punishing works because people are getting better, and rewarding doesn't work because they are worse. But actually, what they realized is that we have a process which is called regression to mean. In Polish, it's translated as regression to average. What is the core of this process? What is the mechanism of this process? So, by general, everything we do, we will be in this so-called standard curve. So, mean and on average, most of our results will be pretty good. If you did something which is junk, which is a bad results, on average, there is a greater possibility that your future work and your future effects of your work will move to this mean or average area. If you do something awesome, there is a greater probability then during the next iteration, during your next flight, during your next task, during your next project, you will move somewhere to this mean area. Of course, there is always a problem on how we grade and how we value different things. Yeah? So it is said that over-optimistic Americans will treat something which is, let's say, below average as already a good start, but for the Eastern Europeans, until good results, it will be like, what's this garbage? But in general, we have very strong mechanism which transfers to the fact that exceptional results, both for us as individuals and for the teams we collaborate with and we are members of, in every context, exceptional results are generally not sustainable. Fifth thing, there are different animals on this slide that have one thing in common. Do you know what is this thing? It's the hierarchy. All these social animals form hierarchical structures of their living and on how they're organized. Since the ancient times, the hierarchy was described in various pictures and various papers using different narratives. Even today, if we describe our organizational structures in the companies, it forms the pyramid, right? So in any possible context, we simply work or are engaged in some hierarchical structures of how people are organized. And there is one basic problem with hierarchical organizations. This is the fact that it's very hard to say no to somebody who is up the ladder. And this is also a process which is deeply inscribed into our brains and who we are as humans, but also as social animals. So, yeah, 5 things to know about ourselves: low efficiency of multitasking, taking easier tasks first, overestimating progress down, exceptional results are not sustainable, and it's hard to say no to somebody of the latter. Now let's move to the human organizations, as they are also an important part of this presentation. During hundreds of years of how people were organized, several types of leadership and several types of organization were created. And what is important is that all of these types are generally efficient based on the goal the organization have. But all of the organization, no matter in which one of these you're working in, have the same common problems based on organizational research that was conducted for last at least 100 years. And I will also mention here 5. First thing, in every organization, I believe you've seen this matrix every time, almost on every presentation on organizational design. So we have 2 types of things: impact and effort. And the problem with human organization is that we will always have conflict between the quick wins and strategy initiatives, so the projects or tasks which we won't be rewarded instantly for. So we will always be in this conflict between these 2 areas. This is a widespread and most general characteristic of every human organization. Second one is about how we work. Today, human organization, at least those in innovative sectors of economy, want to transform into self-organizing, self-managing teams with no managers, where team is responsible for doing the work. On the other side of the axis, we have a structure where your boss, your manager, looks and monitors your work and its effects to get results. And this is the example of second aspect of human organizations. There will also always be a conflict between employee monitoring and trust. It can be solved in many different ways, but generally this conflict exists in every organization. Third thing, let's assume that you have a service provider and service consumer. Within this relation, there is also some kind of tension which is quite universal. So for a person who is a customer, is a client, he or she wants to get as much as he or she wants with as little as he or she can pay. And for the service provider, it's just the opposite. So you want to deliver as little as you can for as much as your customer can pay. So you will always have a conflict based on this relation between your team's well-being and your team being satisfied, not pushed, not pressed, and so on, and customer satisfaction, because you can always press your team harder, assuming that the client will be more satisfied and more happy with the effects of your work. Fourth aspect of human organizations, and generally a very important aspect in the context of what we're doing in IT. So no matter what you will do, it can always get better. So no matter of the software you write, no matter of the hardware you design, you can always improve on what you actually have. So we will always have a problem of the endless upgrades that can be implemented, improvements, and any corrections to existing systems. And handling these is actually a challenge to every organization there is. And the fifth aspect is immanent to how we are organized in our modern companies. And let's use this example as some kind of visualization of what we have. In any of these buildings, there are people who are actually engaged with the work, with the projects, tasks being developed in this company. Above them, in the hierarchical structure, there are people who analyze the work, look for improvements, look for process changes, and so on. And on the top, there are people who decide on the company's strategy, where the company should go, and so on. And at every level of the organization, we have asymmetry of information. So at every level, there is a knowledge which is really related to the place where you are, which is not easily transferred to the higher level of organization. And at every level, the work is or the information about the work covered by people is transformed. The first transformation, for example, for every or most Scrum teams is the transformation from work to story points to velocity. So people who are above, people who we report to, people who analyze the progress of our projects and the product development do not work strictly at what we are working on, do not engage with the actual work. They analyze our velocity, and people who are on top decide on the reports or information transformed again and provided upstream. So there's a great challenge in this situation where to start any change in any organization, because on different levels of every organization, people will know things people on the other level won't know. So where to start the effective change? This is also a challenge for every organization there is. So again, 5 things about how we are organized: conflict between quick wins and work stability, employee monitoring versus trust, third conflict, team well-being versus customer satisfaction, the problem of endless upgrades, improvement and corrections, and the problem of where to start efficient change. Okay, so here we go to the final part. What we actually do with Scrum as one of the Agile so-called frameworks is that we are actually acting against our brain with it. And yeah, by implementing Scrum, we are scrumming against it. But before we go there, just another story. A few years ago, 2 rappers, Taco Hemingway and Ke Bonafide, had a very popular song in Poland, which was called Tamagotchi. And in this song, Tamagotchi, there is a quote that when one of the singers closes his eyes, he sees a thing. What was this thing? It was a field wallpaper from Windows. And if you are working with Windows, you can see something like this. If you're working with Mac, you will see something like this. The question is, why is it? Why, either it was Taco or Kebo, why they see this wallpaper? And why these kinds of wallpapers are on our computers? This is because tech giants know we think with metaphors. And every time you open your laptop, every time you turn on your computer, your wallpaper should lead you to the possibilities, to endless possibilities, which can be seen even until the horizon. So our wallpapers, default wallpapers, tend to be the metaphor of what we can do in this space, in this area. There is one big problem with metaphors. Although they are very efficient because they show us what we don't know by what we know, they have a tendency to show us one aspect of a thing and hide the other aspect. The greatest visualization of the metaphor is so-called duck rabbit, invented by the most famous philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein. So You can see a duck by looking at one side of the picture and the rabbit by looking at the another, and you cannot see both. So our brain is prone to a mechanism called Gestalt switch. So we can only switch by the context. So by using one metaphor, we can open and see some areas of the work we're doing and things we see, but it hides another aspects of what we work on and what we can reveal, see, and focus on. And in our today's work, we are surrounded by metaphors. The most common ones: deadline is a metaphor. Roadmap is, of course, metaphor taken from travel, right? But we use it to visualize our projects. Mentor or coach is also a metaphor, and the North Star as this one primary, most important goal we have for our work is another metaphor, which is very commonly used. In IT, we might think, okay, in IT, we're very specific. We're outside of the metaphor world. But when we look at IT, particularly, this world and this language, IT language, is filled with metaphors. Cloud, most commonly used metaphor. Container, also a very popular one. Branch for how we code, and computer in general is a metaphor created in 50s or 60s. So no matter of the context we work in, we think and use metaphors mostly unconsciously. And then we move to Scrum. What is Scrum? Scrum is also a metaphor. It's a metaphor for self-coordination, working in a specific way to achieve goal, about teamwork, and so on. And a few years ago, a new team member joined my team, and I always have this introductory speech about Scrum in general and how we work and so on. And I said, okay, Scrum is a thing from this game with rugby. It's a formation. And my developer asked me, okay, but what exactly is it about Scrum that we use this word to describe the framework? And I said, there's a problem with it. And the problem is I don't know much about rugby. So I cannot explain you this metaphor. And then I found out this map of the most popular sports in the world. As you can see, most of the world is green because it's actually football. In these countries, football is the most popular sport. It is the best working metaphor. Rugby is most popular sport only in Papua New Guinea and New Zealand. So it's totally different context on totally other side of the world. Maybe people there could explain you this metaphor of Scrum in IT better. So what I did, I was generally inspired by this map and tried to explain Scrum with football, as it's the metaphor which actually opens some gates in my brain. This is the most popular football formation I know, or maybe not most popular, but the one I like most. So 3 defenders, 4 midfielders, 3 attackers, and of course 1 goalkeeper. But if we do one thing and move the goalkeeper to the field, we will get this formation, which is not football formation at all, but we can describe Scrum framework with these 3 roles or accountabilities, 5 events, and 3 artifacts. And instead of player numbers, let's just assign them icons, which were drawn by my son. So this is his input to this presentation. I hope most of you know Scrum, so I want to go into the detail. We have 3 accountabilities or roles: product owner, Scrum master, and development team. We have product backlog, so a list of items to be done. We have sprint planning meeting, where we decide on the things we commit to. Then during this sprint planning session, we create a sprint backlog, For 1 to 4 weeks, we will work on the items from the sprint backlog. Every 24 hours, we will meet during the daily meeting to check on how we're doing with our sprint goals. In the end, we will have some increment with finished work. We will present it to our stakeholders or people who are generally interested in what we're doing during a review or demo session, and then we will have a retrospective to just think about how we did. One most important thing, although it is written in the Scrum Guide that Scrum is a framework, I would like to just quote what Craig Larman said during one of his best presentations, that Scrum is not a framework. In fact, it is an organizational design. And only by treating Scrum as an organization design, you can get most of it and Scrum against your brain and against problems in your organization. So once again, 5 individual challenges we have and 5 organizational challenges every organization we work in have. So how it relates to Scrum and how Scrum not accidentally have 3 roles and or accountabilities, 5 events and 3 artifacts. It's because all of these items, which are mentioned in the Scrum Guide, actually help us with the inefficiencies we have both on individual and organization level. So let's go one by one. We have the problem of low efficiency of multitasking. Therefore, we have product owner who decides on the sprint goal and the most valuable items, the priorities we'll work on. We have a Scrum Master who should focus with his team on limiting the work in progress just to avoid multitasking. We have sprint and sprint planning and setting sprint goals, which should not be an endless list of, let's say, in this 2-week sprint, we'll have 8 priorities, but setting a very accurate sprint goal to limit work in progress and limit multitasking. And we have daily Scrum, where we can on daily basis inspect on what we're doing and whether someone is not prone to too much context switching. We have sprint backlog, which limits our work and sets focus. And we have increment, which by definition will also help us to limit multitasking. When it comes to the tendency of taking easier tasks first, we have the product owner and created a product backlog by him, which or her, which should be ordered by priorities. And we won't leave the decision on taking the tasks to people who will actually do the work, because there's an external person who will decide what is the most important thing we should work on right now. We have daily Scrum to see whether we're not taking the easier tasks first, but the most important ones during our sprint. And we have the sprint backlog, which will also limit the tasks and set the priorities for the work to be done during the sprint. We have the tendency to overestimate the progress done, and within the Scrum framework, we also have mechanisms to avoid this problem. So first things first, developers working as a team should balance their vision of how we are with our progress by collectively monitoring either each other's progress or working as a team to achieve a certain goal we have. We have the sprint in general, which helps us focus on little pieces of software, little pieces of the solutions we design and develop, not to work for 2 or 3 months on one big thing, but to have a quick feedback loop for what we do and what's our progress on building a solution or a product. We have daily Scrum, which serves the same goal, and review and increment. Very important aspects of Scrum, where you can actually show after 1 to 4 weeks the actual work and the actual value you provided, which limits our thinking of the progress we did, because it can be empirically checked with the stakeholders during a demo session. Exceptional results are not sustainable. These basic problems is solved mostly, and I really strongly believe it as a Scrum Master, by self-managing Scrum team. So if we have a major Scrum team, we know that it's not about like pushing everyone for one sprint to complete some super important goal. It's about dividing our goals into increments to stably over time provide effective and stable results. We have sprints from 1 to 4 weeks to provide value iteratively and in balanced way. We have retrospective for the Scrum team to think about how we did in the past sprint, what was good, what was bad, what can be corrected, how our internal process can be more efficient, but not to have a great velocity next sprint, but to get better as a team in longer period of time. And of course, we have sprint backlog, which we commit to, but by committing to it, we base it on how we are as a team and what are our capabilities. And for the biggest problem, so having it hard to say no to somebody up the ladder, it's really solved within Scrum by having product owner as a member of the Scrum team. So if something cannot be completed within one iteration, if the team cannot commit to completing it, it's about saying no to a person who is a member of your team, not to anyone who is above you. And by having a healthy Scrum team within those 3 roles of or accountabilities mentioned in the Scrum guide, you can avoid this problem of communicating things you cannot do or you're not, which are not realistic to be completed to somebody outside of the team. You just don't do it. 5 things on the organizational side, also solved by Scrum. We have 5 of them, and our 11 players on the football field. So quick wins versus work stability. This is also the greatest accountability of the Scrum team in general. So based on the prioritized list from the backlog, we will know by collaborating within the team what will provide us results, and by developing value incrementally, we'll avoid the problem of having a quick win in 2 weeks and then having a problem developing either the full solution or working for the objectives which won't bring us value instantly. We have the problem of employee monitoring versus trust, also solved within Scrum, either by developers or the dev team, depending on the version of the Scrum guide you're most familiar with. So developers are working together most in the best way on one shared repo, just to know where we are on the work done. We have daily Scrum to inspect and adapt on a daily basis, and we have review on increment, which empirically shows what we actually did, so that no one has to stand above us and tell us what to do and monitor the work on a daily basis externally. We have the conflict between team well-being and customer satisfaction, and those aspects of Scrum already touch this conflict. So we commit to the work that should be done in next iteration during a sprint planning session and defining the sprint backlog, which will be the effect of collaboration between either the product owner as a team or product owner and customer and the team. We'll have daily Scrum to inspect and adapt on daily basis, and the most important aspect of Scrum, so the increment presented during the review as the balance to the problem of meeting customer requirements. Endless upgrades and improvements, of course, also addressed in Scrum. So although our solution can always be better, any improvements will become items in the product backlog, which will be prioritized by our product owner, and whether the improvement or upgrade should be implemented in the first place. It's a matter of prioritizing it and either including it in sprint planning session or not. And the problem of where to start change, it's also in the core of the Scrum as a framework or organization design, as I'm thinking of it. So it's the accountability of the Scrum team to know, either during the retrospective or on more frequent basis, to know what should be changed and to engage the process, to start the process of being aware of how we can improve at the lowest level of organization, and the role of the Scrum Master, which is really important for not only making the Scrum work for your team, but making the Scrum work for your organization. And of course, if you want to change something around the solution, the increment and the feedback we get from the customer is the best place where we can start the change around what we actually do. Scrum, as I already said during this part, has many benefits, but it's not a perfect tool. As every tool and as every metaphor, it reveals some aspects for reality and hide the others. So I will just mention like some aspects of the limits of Scrum, not to leave it as a perfect solution. So first thing first, Scrum is not a multi-tool. It's not a framework or organization design that will work for every product development, every project, and in every organizational context. So treating Scrum as thing which will fit every context is not a good way to go. There is a general problem with the Scrum framework and tension between Scrum Master and Product Owner, which in some organization can lead to some bad things happening, but they can be easily avoided. But generally speaking, this problem happens from team to team. And there is a basic problem with the Scrum framework, which can be seen in these pictures, that although we're implementing Scrum as a framework, we're not treating it as an organizational design. Therefore, we fall into some problems which are related to treating it as some kind of practice. And finally, we have a fundamental problem with Scrum and how our brains work. This is Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner in economics. And what he said is that generally as human beings, we are overconfident in our opinions and impressions and judgments. And this heavily impacts the way we estimate. In the core of Scrum is the empowerment of the team to provide their estimates and be accountable for them. But as we are overconfident with what we can do with our abilities and our judgments, we'll always have tendency to either overcommit or overestimate the work that can be done. Therefore, estimates provided by the Scrum team in general will never be perfect. So we can always try to improve, but there are limits to the estimation process itself. And finally, I dive deep into the Scrum as an Agile framework or an organizational design based on the 4 Agile values. But please keep in mind that there are several different frameworks which are Agile, and they are simply different metaphors of how we can approach our work, which again, going back to the metaphor, will reveal one side of the coin and hide the other will be effective in some contexts and ineffective in others. And final quote to leave you with: I strongly believe that Agile frameworks in general and Scrum in particular are the conditions we create for victory in our everyday work, acting against our brains and the inefficiencies inscribed in our organizations. Here is either a QR code you can scan or code to Menti for any feedback from you about this presentation. How can I make it better? What did you like about it? What you didn't? I would be really grateful for any feedback that can make this presentation better. And in the end, I would love to thank you for being a part of this adventure I invited you for. Thank you so much.